Hey everyone, so I'm here with Shoshana Brown and Autumn Leonard from the Black Jewish Liberation Collective. How are you all doing today?
I'm good.
Me too. Love that enthusiasm. Glad to be here. So BJLC is a collective of Black Jews based in the United States who amplify Black Jewish voices and uplift Black Jewish cultural and political organizing. They are nationwide and they create space for community building and strategizing to support Black people who are working towards collective liberation. Obviously, all of that's really important work, and you've been doing it for a while, even since our initial written profile of you guys back in January 2022. So I'd like to start out by asking for some highlights from the last couple of years. What have you all been up to?
Ooh, that's exciting. Well, we started off doing things like Kwanzaa, where we celebrated a connection between Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, and created kind of a unique Black ritual. And we have been up to the Juneteenth Seder, right, where we created a Seder for Black Jews. And mostly we are a place for Black Jews to be engaged, to find each other, to see each other, to hold each other in community. Because too often we're like the only or the one in our spiritual and Jewish communal spaces. And via the BJLC, we can be together instead of solo.
And now I'm here together with you for the first time, Autumn. This is a leadership change that we're kind of in the process of happening right now. I've been meeting with Shoshana for the past couple of years. So we're obviously sad to see you step aside, Shoshana, and very excited to see you step forward, Autumn. So I'll start with Shoshana. What are you most proud of having worked on, done, accomplished, whatever, in leaving BJLC?
First of all, I am so hyped. Like, this leadership transition is a dream come true. It's something that we have talked about and dreamed about for many years. And so for me, I think the leadership transition in and of itself is a thing that I feel proud of, that so many organizations often end up being like, just like strangled by founder syndrome. And I feel really proud that at BJLC we are we are able to make sure that we are rooting down in who we say we are, a collective, and that there is collective leadership, and we can like change and exchange power across the organization, and that happens smoothly and easily and joyfully. I also feel really proud that we have consistently rooted in our values and maintained a clear politic of like really getting at and being a thought space of what is Black Jewish politic, what is Black Jewish ritual, what does it mean to have a Black Jewish culture.
Hmm.
Well, I just want to say thanks once again for all your work in doing that over the last couple of years. Those are obviously questions that are both, important conceptually to me as a member of this Jewish left space, and also personally to myself as a Black Jew. So appreciate everything you've done. Now on to Autumn. What are you most excited to step into with this role at
Mm.
BJLC? Tell us about what you think is possible and what you're excited to help BJLC organize towards.
Mm. Mm. Um, so first of all, like the fact that I can dream and create things is 100% due to the sweat, like heart and just time that Shoshana has put in for 8 years. I was saying I'm filling the biggest, tiniest shoes in the world because they're like huge, like leadership shoes and teeny tiny size 5 shoes. So it's like she's gonna be borrowing my kids' shoes for that camping trip. Um, um, uh, I'm so part of what we're excited is to expand into new ritual, right? Like we really see us as creating a new chapter in Torah, right? Torah is living, and for decades, if not hundreds of years in this country, the chapter of Torah in the US has mostly been written by Ashkenazi normative European folks. And we really see the ritual and the community that we're building as writing the Black chapter of Torah, right? Which is amazing, in carrying it forward. One of the things that I'm really excited if I could get Shoshana in a room with Hadar would be to do the mashup between the Yemenite step and the electric slide. Like, so we're also creating like whatever our new wedding dance would be for us by us. You know, we have our birthday song. Now we need our own music and wedding dance to go with the whole thing. But really, I'm excited about the opportunities for engaging in our organizing, right? The political ad for political engagement and the maybe more peer-to-peer stuff, because so often younger Jews coming up are don't see themselves. And the more we can engage in a cross generation way, right? Like the first generation of BJLC, it's kind of moving up and then making way for the next one to come up behind us. So like planting new liberation seeds.
I love that, and especially as someone who's like a former Hillel professional who worked with a lot of Jewish students of color while I was on campus and like saw how much it mattered, just like both having me be the person reaching out and like and hearing students talk about how much having what was called our Hillelim with Melanin community was, you know, so like I know how important that is and very excited to hear you hear you all working on that. Before I transition to a more difficult thing, though, I do want to say, I know you said we have a birthday song, but my birthday song is a birthday song by 2 Chainz, personally. So,
okay, wait, sing it now, sing it.
I can't do that at work now. You're all gonna get me in trouble. When we finish, I'll tell a funny story about that. But this,
well, that
we're in a joyful moment here, and obviously very important to find moments like this. But this moment in time is a particularly difficult one for a lot of Jews, and for many Black Jews, as you know, probably anyone watching this knows. Israel and Hamas have now been at war for over 130 days. I was obviously hoping, that I would have to change this by the time we were doing this and by the time I sent it to you. Not the case. JLF, we've normally been releasing one of these interviews every month, and we haven't released one of these standard interviews since September of last year. But while the context of our work changes and we must respond to the moment, it's also important that the work that JLF and our grantee partners such as yourselves have been doing this whole time continues on. So sort of like a combo question, right? How have you all responded to this current moment? And how have you been managing Black Jewish community during this time? And then we'll come back afterwards to ask about, your ongoing work.
So what happened is we had started a political education pod, right? Our Va'ad. And then because we had been engaging in conversations and even like years ago had an Israel-Palestine study group, right? So actually we were kind of prepared in some ways, I think in a way that many Jewish organizations weren't. Like we had an active group and we had a lot of folks who had a lot of deep knowledge about the history of how Israel and Palestine got there, right? Like basically nobody in BJLC is like, wait, England like was, like there and then placed like, the Jewish state there as like a part of like empire building. Like we already know those facts, where I think for many folks that's still like information they're coming into. And so our political Va'ad like immediately reached out and was like, hey, let's have a whole member conversation about this. And not everyone agreed, right? But because we engaged in the conversation and everyone was invited to the conversation, we really took our time before we came out and like had an idea of how we're going to move forward. I can speak, like, I want to be really clear, we're not a monolith, but I can speak for myself and say, like, as a parent, I think there's a particular angst, anxiety, sadness about the idea of any child transitioning from this world in a way where they're not held and loved, right? Like, and so the vast numbers of children, for me personally, is shocking. And that, like, you know, I got into Black Jewish organizing because I was a Black Jew, and then suddenly I was raising two Black Jewish kids, and I was like, I want this identity to exist. And so I have this same connection when I think of why, for me, it's important to be in a ceasefire, is like the same thing that impelled me into my Black Jewish political community organizing is the same thing that makes me want to see a ceasefire. Personally, I'm speaking for myself, because I just think that all kids deserve to be held with care and love, and not to be transitioning out of this world in fear and alone. So that's me personally. And so the organization has a spectrum. And that's the cool thing about being a collective, is we don't all have to agree. But the cool thing is that even though we didn't all agree, when some folks went left and some folks went right, we still stayed in the same room, right? Like, we didn't have members, you know, like in synagogues, in Jewish organizations. And we hear anecdotally, like, especially for some Black and Brown Jews, that you know, they're being disproportionately targeted for choosing, like, are you Black or are you Jewish in the current political moment?
Right.
And we're like, no, you don't get to draw a dividing line down the middle of us.
Right.
We are Black and Jewish. We are Black, Jewish Americans, and we see the world the way that we see it, and we're staying in connection with each other. And your job is to be Jewish with us, whether you agree with us or not, right? Or whether you're used to seeing Jews like us or not. And so we responded to the current moment. There is a crew that has like a progressive takeoff over in that direction. And then there's a crew that's like deeply into Palestinian solidarity. And that's, and so, but the cool thing is that we're still all like coming into our monthly meetings. We're still engaging on the listserv. We're still inviting each other. And there's a beautiful, lovely person who's holding space just for emotions and togetherness in the face of it. And all of that bubbles up from the membership, right?
That's really beautiful. And, you know, great to hear that, you know, it can, in a moment like this, it's often a time of division for a lot of communities, like you're mentioning. It sounds like it's been one that BJLC has really been able to face and come to as a community, and you know, a point of strengthening, which is beautiful and important. You know, we're going to jump to Shoshana here. Obviously, what a time to be stepping aside. You know, you've been doing this for 8 years. How have you managed to prioritize the organization's health and your ongoing work in a moment like this, when it seems like the world is focused on a singular issue?
Firstly, there is not a time when our organization has not actually been responding to crisis. The Black Jewish Liberation Collective was born inside of crisis, inside of the crisis of what it meant for the movement for Black lives to stand in solidarity with Palestine and the white legacy institutional Jewish community sort of retracting funds and support, etc. And that's sort of like the ground that was fertile soil for us to grow and develop a vision of what Black Jewish Liberation Collective is needed in the world, and how we see ourselves as a future for what's possible. So we're used to operating inside of a world that says like there is a crisis going on, and also we get to hold these other conversations that aren't necessarily in crisis, but we know will become crisis. So while we're managing that, we're also developing inside of an abolitionist working group and talking about policing, etc. While we're managing, you know, looking at and studying what and educating ourselves and developing a politic around solidarity with Palestine, we're able to also think about how do we deepen our theological understanding of Black Jewishness, and what are rituals that we can create and develop that help root us. Like, how do we orient to a Black August? How do we orient to a Tu B'Shvat? How do we orient to other meaningful holidays within the calendar that can bring us closer together and root us in our unity, and also hold the multiplicity? That's who we are at our core. So it's not like how do we prioritize our organizational health. This is like, oh, everybody else, welcome to the club.
Wait, so what you're telling me is that as Black people and Jewish people, you're responding to a lot of crisis?
I mean, just every day, not like, a
But
big
also,
deal.
I do think there's something in that identity that allows us to negotiate difference, right? There's
Right.
something in that identity where a lot of us already have a skill set of negotiating difference and talking to people across lines of division, right?
Right.
And whether it's like you're born into it or you chose it, like it's still a more complicated identity, right?
Mhm.
Totally.
So I think,
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, and we've been able to do that, right? And part of it is like, it may seem like the world is focused on this singular issue, but I think what is beautiful about the statement that we put out is that, and the conversations that we've had internally, is that we've been able to draw connections for a lot of our work as it relates, right? Like, understanding, just as we are Black Jews and we can't, like Autumn said earlier, just divide like, oh, I'm Black and Jewish, right? Like, we are Black Jews and we get to experience the world holistically. That is also true for everything that happens in the world. Like, there's interconnection across issue. And so when we're thinking about liberation, we're not only thinking about liberation as in terms of racial justice, we're also thinking about it like geopolitically. We're also thinking about it environmentally. We're also thinking about all of the ways in which justice and liberation has to come forth.
Absolutely. And as far as a moment to be connected to sort of this history of Black organizing that's connected to a lot of different things, where I guess when this will be towards the middle of Black History Month now, and I'm wondering if there's anything that you're reflecting on this month from the long legacy of Black organizing and activism you were a part of that inspires you in this particular moment, and things you're inspired by that might be a good thing to prompt you.
Well, you saw my original, right, inspiration just pop in there for a second, like a little interesting goldfish looking at the side of the aquarium.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, one of the things that we're focusing on right now for this, and it's like such a beautiful thing, is Black joy, right? Black Jewish joy. And I think, like, I remember the first time after the violence broke out in a room where I was facilitating or navigating a bunch of things, like feeling for the first time in years this frisson of unease about coming out of the closet and being like owning Black Jew in a space with lots of different people from different backgrounds, which is often where I'm holding space. And I was like, woo, right? Like, here's a thing. And continuing to find the joy and the beauty in who we are, right? And not letting the narrative of you have to be a Jew like this, right? Like, we can celebrate that we are Jews the way that we are Jews. And especially with the stories that we're hearing where some folks are getting fired or some folks are kind of losing access to their spiritual communities. Like, when we're really challenging this concept that we talk about a lot in Judaism about a big tent, right? And then suddenly, like, that big tent is being treated like BS when it comes to Black and brown Jewish bodies if they don't toe a certain line.
Yeah.
And so for us, like, we're saying, no, look, we're beautiful, we're here, and here's something that gives us joy. And I think also when we're talking about planting liberation seeds, I recently had interaction where a mom was saying, like, my kid came home from Black History Month and was like, I don't want to be Black. It's all horrible. Right. And so, like our stories can't be like all struggle. Right. Liberation is also being liberated in our imagination. And that's part of what we're doing when we're creating ritual and space to celebrate Black Jewish joy during Black History Month. And also Black joy, right? Like connecting the ways in which Jews and Black folks are joyous together. And we have a long history of that, right? And it's, and when we're talking about geopolitical, right, when people are trying to pull us apart, right, like some of the identity stuff, like you're either Black or you're Jewish, is also political, about saying like Black folks over here and Jews over there. And we proudly stand in the middle of the line and we're like, we're going to complicate this political discussion and not make it so easy for all of y'all to jump over here or jump over there. And instead we're going to stay in conversation.
And we're going to stay in conversation and be joyful when we do it. That's what I like to hear. So thanks so much for your time, both Autumn and Shoshana. Really appreciate both, you all taking your time here and the work that you're doing in an ongoing way. If there are some Black Jewish organizers or just Black Jewish people looking to get involved right now, where can they find you?
BlackJewishLiberation.org. They can also find us on Instagram, on the gram. That's what the hip kids say now, right?
That's what the hip kids say now. Actually, the hip kids are on TikTok, but I wouldn't know anything about that. Thanks. Thank you both so much for your time. Have a lovely rest of your day.